LODELA, Revell of Mexico, keeping early vintage Revell kits alive. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Celebrating Aviation with Mike Mashat. Today, we're going to talk about creating box art for Revell of Mexico. LODELA was one of several foreign subsidiaries of the Revell company. It was established in 1957, primarily for reissuing airliner kits in the markings of Central and South American airlines. The story begins for me at a Kit Collectors Expo and sale in mid-1970s, where I met Ron Ferreira, who was the American rep for LODELA. These were the very beginnings of the model shows in LA that grew into just amazing experiences. Here you see on this chart about 30 tables. The show eventually grew to more than 100, and it ran continuously from the mid-70s until just this year, unfortunately canceled for the first time because of the pandemic. But Ron and I established a nice friendship, and I had just hired into the Douglas Aircraft Company art department, and so I had experience doing tech art. And so with Ron's ideas and my artwork, we formed a very natural combination of talent, and I started working for the a company doing graphics, such as the decal patterns that you see here. And eventually I got to do covers. The first project that we did was the reissue of this 1954 Revell kit of the Grumman Cougar and the 1955 original kit of the F-84F Thunderstreak. LODELA was going to reissue these kits in the markings of the U.S. National Aerobatic Teams, the Navy Blue Angels and the Air Force Thunderbirds, specifically the lead airplanes of both teams that you see here. So the beginning of the process for me was to make sure I had some maneuvers to illustrate and make sure they were correct. And so I looked at the 1978 Blue Angels brochure, and lo and behold, there was this photo, which I thought was the beginning of a good idea. What I did is I flopped it and eliminated the two solo pilots. And the airplane you see in the white box there is the slot airplane in the actual formation, but I changed it to the lead airplane and came up with a design that looks something like this. This is a schematic. It's the kind of the boilerplate drawing to put the composition together and identify any problem areas. And here was one of them. This is called a tangent, where you have visual elements that collide and stop the eye. This actually freezes the airplane from moving. And so here you have the leading edge fence on the Cougar intersecting with the smoke from one of the airplanes in the background. I'll go ahead and adjust that in the final art. So the next step was to take the schematic and insert the subject airplane, which you see here in this drawing. So it had a nice dramatic view. And this became the basis for the painting, which then became the box art for my first cover for Revell of Mexico. I wound up doing the color profile that you see there at lower right. That's for decal placement, general reference. And it was a first and a successful kit in its own right. But the companion Thunderbird's F-84 was delayed for a number of years, and so an artist in Mexico did the final art. This was my initial concept sketch that he used. My next military airplane for LODELA was the Douglas A4 Skyhawk in Argentinian markings. And so this is a color comp done in Prismacolor pencil, just a quick sketch to just show the general idea of what we were going to do on the cover. And Ron wanted a very high impact look, so I used mixed media, a combination of gouache, a little transparent watercolor, Prismacolor pencil, and came up with this design. And this was the Argentine Navy A4 Skyhawk. Next came a series of airliners. I've always enjoyed airliners, and so this was a special project for me. We started with the initial 1958 issue of Revell's Fairchild F27, and we reissued it in Ozark markings. What you see here is the actual painting. This is the raw illustration board. It's designer's gouache, and you see the warm-up strokes, as I call them, on the extreme right edge there. Those are little color tests and just getting the brushes ready to go into the final art. The crop marks are in each corner, and then when the image is cropped, you have this, which is the image on the box. There is the printed cover. You can see the color shifts just a touch, and so the paintings have to be done in very high impact colors to read well once they're printed. Additionally, I did the profile work. Here we have the decal placement, and then we do things like this for coloring, painting the airplane and showing where the colors go and color breaks and things like that. Another facet of this kit, the original Revell kit offered 9 other color schemes in decals that you could send away for 10 cents. You could write to the company, and you could get any one of these airlines, as you see here from the Craig Cadera collection. And so Revell took the lead on that, and we decided to do Swift Air for our LODELA's F27. This is the decal pattern. This is not the actual sheet. This is just the pattern that the decals were made from. You see there at the bottom the PMS color samples. And Swift Air had 3 F27s, and so we provided the N numbers for all 3 airplanes. And then these were sold independently, just the way Revell did in the late 50s. This was a really cool project. I had so much fun with this. This is the United Airlines DC8 Super 61. The Super Series of DC8s were the stretched 250 passenger airplanes. And this is a Jack Lenwood cover. And you heard me speak before of the Lenwoodisms, the little tricks that Jack would play to attract the attention of the young modelers. And this is one of the best. How many engines on a DC8? I'll give you a minute. Yeah, there's 4. How many contrails do you see? 2. And the reason, very specific, it attracted your eye. You got a low sun angle, so it's dramatic. But what was going on is if Jack had added the contrail for the number 3 engine, it would have gone right behind that beautiful tail cone. And so this was far more effective in illustrating the airplane, and you wind up with 2 contrails. Your eye fills in the other 2. So LODELA chose to do the Flying Tiger DC8 freighter. And if you look at the markings, yeah, believe it or not, there was a jumbo jet 3 years before the 747. This airplane first flew in 1967. And this is the Series 63. This is a different airplane than the United. This has upgraded fan engines and different nacelles and pylons. So you've heard of the back of the napkin sketch. That's the initial quick sketch that an artist will do. In this case, it's on a Post-it note, but it's about a 2 or 3 minute quick drawing just to illustrate the view of the airplane, how it's going to work on the cover. And here's the cover painting showing over Mount Fuji, the DC8 63 freighter. As I mentioned, the 63F model had the what they call cutback pylons and flow-through nacelles on its engines. And the intent was to insert into the kit vacuum form DC8 63 engines. So we had the spec drawings. These are direct from Douglas. We had everything we needed to fabricate those vacuum form engines. And that was the plan, was to offer the modelers the 63 or the 61 as it was molded in the kit. We offered the decal sheet. I did these, and we had markings for both types of airplanes, the delivery scheme and the later scheme, correct N numbers for both. And for whatever reason, and it was never explained to me in detail, but for whatever reason, right at the end, just before the model was released, the boxes were printed and a decision was made not to include the engines. And so this meant, and if any of you modelers bought this kit, you have my personal apology, but it was just, as things happen in the industry, changes are made at the last minute. And so what was shown as a DC8 63 on the cover, inside the box was actually a 61. The good news is that Tigers did fly DC8 61s. They leased 2 of them for MAC charter work during the Vietnam War. And so you could build the kit, put Tigers markings on them, and it would be accurate in terms of the airline actually having flown that model of the airplane. Next up were a couple of DC9s. And so what I'm showing you here is called a value study. This is a black and white drawing done in pencil. And this is it's kind of a roadmap to show me the lighting and the shadowing on the airplane. And this is the cover for the Bonanza DC9. This is the first of the two DC9s we did, and this is kind of the coming at you in your face view, crowding the boxes, Jack Lemmon used to call it. We tried this at first, and the second DC9 was done in what we call the traditional airliner view. It turns out that looking at the marketing and the sales of the kits, this was deemed as more successful. And I think that's a reaction to the airliner enthusiasts that were really gaining steam in the 1980s, the World Airline Historical Society, the airline shows all over the country and all over the world for that matter. The airline view that you see here was preferred because you could count the number of windows, you could see the emergency exits, you could see the N number, and this became the standard view for the rest of the airliners that we did for LODELA. This is how it translated to the box. You can see the format that was established with this kit. We decided to run a stripe across the top and have the Revell LODELA logos, the airline logo, and the type of airplane. So next up was the Aero Peru Boeing 727-100, originally an American Airlines kit, shown over the Andes Mountains. And then here what you see, we're looking through a clear sheet of acetate at the artwork, and this is the paste up that goes to the printer. This is how the cover is actually made from these graphics. Those are photostats of the logos on the top there. This is the one we did for Vyasa, a DC8 Series 30. Kind of a nice, I always love the coloration on this because blue and orange are complementary colors, and it just seemed to work really well. And then there was this, the Ecuatoriana 720. It was actually 707 inside the box. And there were 13 different colors on this color scheme. So the decal sheet would have been an interesting project. Again, for whatever reason, there was a decision made and the kit was not produced. But this is probably one of the more colorful color schemes I've ever painted in my career, much less for the series of models. By the early 1980s, the truth in advertising laws were impacting model box tops, and many companies were going to photos of the actual airplane or photos of the built model in place of artwork. And so we accepted that and moved on. But this is a photo of the Mexicana. It's a DC10 Series 15. It's a unique airplane. I might take a moment to talk about that. The Series 15 was used by Mexicana and Aeromexico. It is a lightweight DC-10 airframe with the DC-10 30 engines, but no center main landing gear. And this was designed for hot high operations in Mexico City. It was a very successful airplane for both airlines. And so I thought you'd enjoy seeing a photo of that. And there you have it, a look at creating box art for LODELA, the Revell of Mexico. Hope you enjoyed the presentation. And thank you for celebrating aviation with Mike Machat. As always, I'd like to thank some very special people. Ron Ferreira was just a wonderful, wonderful collaborator, great guy, so enthusiastic about modeling and airliners. We really had a wonderful friendship and a great run with the kits. To Craig Cadera for the use of his collection, and to the late Bob Keller for establishing the Kit Collectors Expo, just a real benchmark in vintage model collecting. The show ran 2 or 3 times a year continuously since the mid-70s, and we're very thankful for Bob's efforts. If you enjoy the channel, feel free to subscribe. Go ahead and click on that 707 at lower right, and we will see you next time.